Good evening, and welcome to Intwine, your number one source of news and entertainment. Today I'm going to talk about 60 Minutes. Everybody knows, super popular show. To me, another arm of the Democratic Party. But today, they did a coverage of why Donald Trump became president, why the resurrection of Trump. And I found it quite interesting. Let's take a look at the video and let me know your thoughts.
We can out-Trump Trump.
To the victor go the spoils.
He was president before, and the world didn't end.
We're in a brave new world.
But what does his win mean for Australia?
Trump prides himself on being unpredictable.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
What a campaign. What an election. What a result. To the victor, Donald Trump, go the spoils. From early next year, he'll return to the White House for another 4 years as the most powerful man on earth. And for someone with such an unpredictable and egotistical nature, that old saying, we live in interesting times, couldn't be more apt. But now that we've had a few days to process Trump's extraordinary and impressive resurrection, it's time to seriously consider the impacts his return to the Oval Office will have for Australia and the rest of the world. A joyous and wholesome scene. So far removed from the MAGA mania we're used to. Donald Trump's inner circle of family and supporters joining in a traditional Christian hymn. Moments after he declared victory.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
Their redeemer, soon to be the 47th President of the United States, risen from political ruin, propelled by the anger and frustration of millions.
It is an FU to those in charge over the last 4 years that promised to unite the country and didn't, promised to hear the voices of the unheard and didn't, promised to make a meaningful, measurable difference in the quality of life of everyone and didn't. And finally, they just said, F you. It was wrong, and it led the coverage.
Unlike so many of us, renowned Republican pollster Frank Luntz isn't surprised by the election result. Since Trump declared victory, I've had so many messages saying, how could Americans choose Donald Trump?
My job is public opinion, and it's to measure the hopes and fears of the American people and the reactions that they have to elected officials and the people who govern them. Right now, fewer Americans trust the institutions that govern them than ever before. Fewer Americans trust the people who run those institutions. And it's in that environment that Donald Trump got brought back into office.
Why we don't trust the institutions? Because other things that they doing. Prosecuting innocent people. Censorship. You can't say anything. Online, offline. I mean, it's ridiculous. So people got frustrated and angry. And so what they were doing to Donald Trump, they were fabricating charges. They were doing so much effort to stop this guy, and people saw through all that bullshit. That's what happens.
They were prepared to take Trump at his worst over Harris at her worst. He was the vote of the people who had enough. He won because the American people said, I don't want this anymore. I will take you, Mr. Trump, and all that baggage, because I believe you're most likely to bring about the change that this country needs.
In Springfield, they're eating the
All the baggage that he refers to is about all the lawsuits that he faced, all the charges that they fabricated on this guy. I mean, this man has more charges than any living human in the planet. How is that possible? And his presidency wasn't so bad. I mean, you can say whatever, but it wasn't so bad. It was actually great. Great.
dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
It's hard to fathom a civil and respectful America after such an unhinged and almost fatal presidential campaign. With a late change of candidates, 2 assassination attempts, and an explosive Donald Trump personally ridiculing his rival, Vice President Kamala Harris, and everything she stood for.
Certainly the dumbest vice president, and would be beyond the dumbest president, but we're not going to let that happen. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Nobody knew she was black. He was speaking the truth. That lady is Indian. She identified herself as Indian American all the time.
Did the Trump camp nail the campaign, or did the Harris camp blow it?
It's a great question. And I believe it's more that the Harris campaign blew it.
I mean, he unravelled at the end of the
hurting
campaign.
him. And yet the public still said, I'd rather have Trump unraveled and unplugged than Harris focused and determined. Because in the end, she didn't understand. She couldn't feel America. She felt her America. And that Trump ended up being a better voice for more people. That anger that he articulates, that he shows, is an anger inside tens of millions of Americans. And they thought that he was better for them, better for the country. And they'd say to you, in my focus groups, again and again, I don't like him. But I don't have to like my president. I don't like what he says. I don't like what he does.
I don't like the way he treats women.
No, I don't like any of that. But I still think that he's a better president for affordability and security.
And he's right. And he's right. I don't have to like my boss. No. But you need somebody determined to make the company function and great. You don't have to like Donald Trump, but you cannot deny his success as a president. Food was cheaper, gasoline was cheaper, there was no wars anywhere. The border was secure. You cannot take that away. And then when Biden and Kamala took over, all the good things that this country had went away. That's why Donald Trump is president today.
Women's reproductive rights, a primary focus for the Democrats, ultimately failed to block Donald Trump's road back to the White House. Billed as a men versus women election, Trump easily overcame the large gender gap. In her quest for the female vote, Kamala Harris alienated men.
And I was very surprised about this. I was doing focus groups every single week, often 2 in a week's time. And we started to talk to men who were Democrats, who voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, so it's not an anti-female vote. And they voted for Joe Biden in 2020, so it's not an anti-Democrat vote. But they voted for Trump over Harris because they thought she didn't like them. They thought they were being ignored, forgotten, and even dismissed. And it made them angry. It was the perfect moment to be able to say to the Democratic nominee and to America, we have a voice. And just because we're male, just because we have benefited from the hierarchy, doesn't mean you can push us down.
They destroy the pride of being a man. They destroy that. They destroy the pride of being a father, a family-oriented man. They brought homosexuality to the White House everywhere, everywhere. And they left the roots of America, which is family. Family. They left that behind. They were more focused on 1% or less than 1% of the population, which is the transgender population and everything in between, instead of focusing on us, men's that go to work every day, have kids, have a family, respectful. We were not feeling respected anymore.
And it was a vote of resentment. It was a vote of, listen to me.
Donald Trump successfully harnessed the anger of fed-up, struggling, working-class Americans while projecting his own grievances onto his loyal base.
Because I'm being indicted for you, and never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom, because I will never let them take away your freedom. I will never let that happen.
The 78-year-old spent a decent chunk of his...
I mean, you have to understand, you have George Bush, Obama, Clinton, Biden. All of these people did things much worse than what Donald Trump could ever do. Much worse. And none of them got indicted. None of them were trying to take his money, his freedom, destroy his family, his name, his reputation. None of them went through that. And yet, Donald Trump did a better job as a president than all of them combined. It's just look at the numbers. You don't have to believe me. Just look at the numbers. Better than Obama, better than Clinton, better than Joe Biden. Look at the number. Better than Bush. There was no wars. We were not fighting with anybody. And things were coming together. Then the COVID-19 came along. You know, everything was planned, specific to destroy this man, to get him out of office at all costs. And once he was out of office, destroy him and his family and everybody of his his friends, everybody next to him, around him, destroy all of them. And the regular America saw the abuse that the Democrats were doing to this guy.
Campaign in courtrooms.
Guilty! Guilty! Guilty!
Remarkably, his convictions only fueled his following.
Donald Trump's inauguration is still 2 months away, but the state...
That's when they were wrong. His conviction not only fueled his followers. No. I'm an independent voter. I'm not registered with anybody. I don't belong to any party. But Donald Trump, his first and now, had the right message to the people. He did. In the 2020 election, we all know what happened. You know why the Democratic Party didn't do anything fishy this time? Because everybody has their eye wide open. Any little movement, it was on X, on Twitter. Any little sign of cheating, they posted on Twitter this and this and this and that. So they were afraid. That's why the election were clean this time. That's why Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris for over 5 million votes on the popular vote and won all the 7 battleground states. All of them. All of them. The people spoke.
Stage is already being built here in the exact place where his supporters stormed the Capitol, trying to interfere with the 2020 election result. It's now extremely unlikely the president-elect will face any legal consequences for the insurrection, nor many of the other charges hanging over him. The Department of Justice is looking at ways to wind down the federal cases against Donald Trump.
She called that an insurrection. Nobody's happy with what happened there. Nobody's happy. But the funny thing is, she doesn't talk about, these people never did talk about BLM. They burned this country. Caused billions of dollars in losses. These 4 years, all the CVS, all the Walgreens, they were all shutting down because crime served, what, 30%, 40% crime? More? 60 Minutes doesn't talk about these things. They're not interested. No, they're not interested. They want you to believe that this man is the most horrible man on the planet. But guess what? We're not believing that one. That's why he won the presidency again.
In keeping with a policy that bars the prosecution of sitting presidents.
I can't imagine in this country prosecuting someone who's the president of the United States. But I want you to consider this. Indicted 91 times, convicted more than 30 times, impeached twice, accused of sexual assault, accused of lying to the American people. We've never had this from a losing candidate, and we just had someone with all of this baggage elected president of the United States. Boy, my country has changed. I don't recognize.
All that baggage that he's talking about was fabricated. Fabricated. They wanted to destroy this man at all costs. And on the quest to the destruction of Donald Trump, they lost the focus, which was us, the American people, the regular working family, the regular working men. They lost that. They putting men in women's sports. They opened the door to transgenderism in the White House. Everywhere. They opened the door to the sexualization of our kids at school. They took the rights of parents to educate their kids. It was so many things, so many horrible things that we went through the past 4 years. So many horrible things. That's why we chose Donald Trump.
Recognize it now.
Unrecognisable and unpredictable. Donald Trump takes the reins at a perilous moment in time, with the most instability and conflicts since World War II. And as you'll see, many are worried. Could we see World War III?
We are edging ourselves towards a much more confrontational world than we have seen.
The world in 2024 is rife with conflict and uncertainty as war rages in Europe and the Middle East.
Israeli airplane overhead.
It's a vastly different landscape to the last time Donald Trump held the key.
When Donald Trump was there, did you guys saw that image? Destruction everywhere. None of that stuff happened. None of it when he was there. So, another thing. The minute he won the presidency, Hamas doesn't want to fight anymore. Israel want peace. Putin says, I want to talk. I want to stop this. Everybody wants to stop this because Donald Trump is not a man of war. This man is a man of peace through strength. That's the mission. Peace through strength. Not wars. No, none of it. But the media painted this character of a Hitler. Nobody bought that because he was already a presidente. He was already a presidente that did great for this nation. So you can talk all the bullshit that you want about Hitler and blah, 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 blah. Nobody's going to buy that. Nobody did. That's why he won overwhelmingly the presidency.
To the White House. We know what a Trump presidency looks like. Can world leaders be confident in how to work with Donald Trump?
Well, we know what Trump presidency the first time around looks like. This one's going to be different. He is more secure in his own instincts. He has less constraints on the policy advisors that he has around him. Not only is he older himself, but he feels very vindicated this time around.
Charles Adel runs a global think tank in Washington, D.C. and works closely with the Biden administration.
How do you feel about the future of your country?
Well, I think we've got a lot of questions here about what things will look like on the domestic front, how much churn there will be, how much upheaval. Those are big questions for America, but also what that means for America's role in the world.
He warns Donald Trump's haphazard and egotistical approach to foreign policy will be difficult for America's allies and potentially dangerous. In his first term in office, President Trump was critical of NATO, America's oldest security alliance with Europe, blasting member nations for not pulling their weight on defence spending.
Trump himself said that if you don't pay what he terms fair payment, the protection, as he terms the alliance, is over.
He's the only one who made these people pay a fair share. The only one. Taxpayer dollars in this country are getting ripped off by all these agencies, all these globalists. We are getting ripped off. They're not paying the United States to defend them. No. The United States is not the world police. So if any country want the protection of the United States, they must pay their fair share. They gotta pay the protection. That's how it works.
Do you think he may actually withdraw the US from the NATO alliance?
Well, it's unclear. Trump prides himself on being unpredictable and not being clear about what his endpoints are because he can always negotiate further. I think the truth is we do not know, but the volatility will have real effect and will have real effect on allied capitals.
In becoming the 47th president, Donald Trump assumes life and death responsibility. He will take over negotiating peace between Israel and Gaza.
We are with Israel 100%. Thank you, baby. Thank you.
And with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as one of his closest allies, any ceasefire will likely come at the expense of Palestinians.
Palestinians, they're already talking peace. He's not even in office and they're already talking peace. The thing is, the reality is nobody wants to fight. But the Biden administration gave so much money to Iran to arm all these proxy groups, all these groups around to attack Israel, and then it provoked this war unnecessary. Iran was broke.
Trump has also vowed to end Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine on his first day in the job. I mean, what does that look like? What could that look like?
There are not details. It would probably mean a lot more pressure on Ukraine to settle, to renounce its claims to its own territory. The United States cannot make peace for Ukraine, so that is a decision that will be made in Kyiv, not in Washington.
It's very simple. No more money to Ukraine. Ukraine, we're going to be, oh, I don't want to fight anymore. Because we paying for that war. Every time Zelensky comes around, he walks out of here with billions of dollars. Every time. So we pay for something that is actually hurting Ukraine and hurting the United States of America and hurting the whole planet. The whole planet. It must be stopped. It's going to be a meeting with Zelensky and Putin. Zelensky say, I want to continue. Donald Trump's going to say, I'm not going to give you any more money. You can fight, but I'm not going to give you any more money. And that's going to be the end of it. That's going to be the end of it. Guaranteed.
Washington.
And if Donald Trump were to pull US support from Ukraine and Vladimir Putin wins some Ukrainian territory, I mean, what message does that send to other dictators?
Well, you know, this is a really important question you've brought up, because consistently what we hear from several of the advisors within the Trump orbit is that the reason that Donald Trump is not a fan of what's happening in Ukraine, i.e. the Ukrainians fighting back against Russia, is because the Europeans need to handle this. And America cannot afford to take its eye off the ball of the most important strategic competition, which is in Asia and against China. Trump has an affinity towards authoritarian leaders. There is no doubt about that. He likes the trappings of power. He likes the back and forth of great power politics. The question, I think, is whether or not we'll see ourselves over the next several years in a world where those actors who are destabilizing the entire world will continue to see this as a period of uncertainty, of chaos, and of churn, that they can move forward their own interests.
They destabilizing the whole planet now. But the 4 years that Trumps were there, none of that happened. I don't know in what language am I going to repeat myself. This man can say whatever he wants. Whatever he wants. He's a Biden supporter. I get it. But the fact and the matter is that the first presidency of Donald Trump, we had peace. And the country was better. And everybody in the whole planet was better. That is the fact.
As Australia Chair at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies, Charles regularly consults with the Albanese government on trade, defence and security. You spend a lot of time in Canberra. What are they really thinking and saying?
The greatest concern to the Australian government is America that's simply less engaged, that's less invested, that's less present.
But are they worried?
Of course they're worried. Of course they're concerned. When there are question marks in front of you that you don't know the answer to, that you don't know the outcome of, and you don't know what your partner will do, that's when questions multiply. That's true across the board when we talk about trade, when we talk about climate, when we talk about defense issues. Whether or not those initiatives are likely to accelerate forward, kind of tread water, or just be blown up entirely.
The greatest fear for many people is that no one really knows what Trump 2.0 will bring. He was president before, and the world didn't end, although it felt like it sometimes.
He was president before. The world did not end. But we did see advances taken by China, taken by Russia, taken by North Korea during his presidency.
Could we see World War III?
We are edging ourselves towards a much more confrontational world than we have seen.
You guys got us into this mess. You guys, Mr. Biden and the Democratic Party, got us into this mess. Of course, we are at the age of World War III. Hello, we have wars everywhere. Everywhere. It's your fault.
Prospect for not only conflict, but metastasizing conflict in multiple parts of the world is larger than it has been. Whether or not that means World War III is an open question.
But a terrifying one.
but a terrifying one.
I only want to be a dictator for one day.
For all the uncertainty, one thing is clear. An overwhelming majority of Americans have given Donald Trump a second chance. And, like it or not, pollster Frank Luntz says that the show will go on. You could not imagine seeing a political story like this.
These are extraordinary times.
We fight. We fight like hell.
The return of Donald Trump was impossible on January 7th, 2021. It was impossible.
He was gone. He was politically dead.
Done and probably heading to jail. And now he's president of the United States. Go figure. But you know what? In democracies, lots of stuff happen that's unpredictable. When the public says, I've had enough, listen to them. When they say, I want a change, pay attention. And if they're mad as hell, don't reject it, don't insult it, but embrace it. Because in the end, Donald Trump read America better than most of us. And he understood exactly what the country was looking for. And that's why the impossible became reality.
Ladies and gentlemen, he was 100% correct. 100%. Let me know your thoughts about this work from 16 Minutes. It's a Democratic arm of the Democratic Party, pretty much 60 Minutes. Subscribe, like, and I'm going to read the comments. Bye-bye.